She stood near the restaurant entrance like someone unsure whether she truly belonged there. Her hands were tucked under her sleeves, almost as though she wished to become smaller than she already appeared. The afternoon sun had settled right over the street, giving everything a golden tone. But it did not warm her. Her stomach had not known real food since the previous day, perhaps even longer. She wasn't sure anymore. Hunger made time confusing. She looked through the glass door. People were eating, plates full, glasses half filled, napkins folded neatly beside silver forks. She swallowed slowly, wishing more than anything that she could sit inside even for a moment. But she knew she could not afford that. She had tried everywhere else earlier. Some places told her to move, others ignored her completely. She tried explaining that she could play the piano. She tried saying she did not need money, just food, a plate, a sandwich, anything. Most people thought she was joking, even here. While she stood at the door, one of the workers looked at her with a face that held confusion first, then amusement. It seemed her words had sounded unbelievable. How could someone who looked so tired claim she could play anything? She felt embarrassed, even before speaking, but hunger pushed her forward. She slowly stepped inside. A soft sound of jingling metal hung from the small bell fixed at the door. Several people lifted their heads, not to greet her, but simply because something new had entered their space. She took careful steps. She did not want to disturb anyone. She simply wanted food. At the far corner sat an older man who seemed to manage the place. He was taking orders and speaking in a rushed tone. His voice was the kind that people listened to quickly, without questioning. When he finally looked her way, she took a long, steady breath. "Excuse me," she said softly. At first, he did not hear her well. She repeated her words, this time slightly louder. He turned in her direction. Yes, her palms grew warm even though she was cold. She pushed the words out as carefully as possible. "Can I play your piano? If I can, could I get something to eat in return?" There was silence, not the polite kind, but the surprised kind. The kind that stretches longer than necessary. Someone at the table beside her chuckled. A young couple exchanged glances, shaking their heads silently. Another customer lifted their phone as though ready to record something embarrassing. "Play the piano?" the manager repeated. She nodded gently. "For food?" "Yes, just one meal. I can really play, I promise." Her voice trembled, not because she was unsure of her talent, but because she hated asking. Asking made her feel small. She used to walk proudly. She once believed her life would unfold differently, but those days were gone. The manager laughed, not loudly, but clearly. A few others joined in. She felt smaller than ever. "We don't really hire entertainment like that," he said. "I don't need money," she whispered. "Just food. I haven't eaten since yesterday. I can play real music. You can even decide after listening. If you don't like it, I'll leave quietly." She waited for him to answer. She waited for anyone to believe her. But all she saw were doubtful faces. One customer spoke, half joking. "Let her play. Might be fun." Another laughed. "Maybe she only knows the notes." She swallowed quickly, not to reply, but to keep tears away. Then she spotted a piano pushed against the wall near the back, old, scratched, and dusty. But to her eyes, it was beautiful, familiar, safe. She had not touched a piano in months. She remembered when she practiced every evening until someone called her to stop. She remembered when her teacher told her that she had something special. Now those memories felt almost like lies. The manager finally shrugged. "Fine," he said. "Play something. But understand, people are here to eat, not listen. If you disturb anyone, I'll stop you." She nodded quickly. "Thank you. Thank you so much." Her legs almost weakened from relief. Even though they did not believe her, even though they laughed, she at least had a chance. She walked toward the piano slowly. Her hunger made her dizzy. She placed her hand carefully on the bench before sitting. The piano had dust on the top surface, marks left by glasses once placed there. The keys looked old, some slightly yellow, but when she rested her fingers on them, her heart eased just a little. Her body remembered what her mind almost forgot. Behind her, voices continued. "She better be good. Watch this go wrong. Record it. This could be funny." She closed her eyes. She took a long breath, and she whispered to herself, not a prayer, not a request, just words that settled her pulse. "Just play." Before she touched the keys, she remembered the last real meal she shared with her mother. She remembered her mother smiling even though she was sick. She remembered how she tried not to let worry show. Her mother always encouraged her to keep practicing the piano. "One day," she said, "your music will open doors for you." Now the door she was trying to open had nothing behind it except food. But even that mattered. She looked down at her hands. They weren't smooth anymore. They carried small scratches, signs of work she never expected to take on. But her fingers still knew what notes felt like. She pressed the first key. The sound was faint, just one note, but it traveled through the restaurant. Nobody reacted. She placed both hands on the keys. Then she began, not with something loud, not with something dramatic, but with the soft tune she remembered learning when she was young. But she couldn't continue yet because she wanted the moment to stretch just slightly longer. For the first time in many days, she felt purpose. She thought about how this moment formed not from confidence, but from hunger, not from applause, but from desperation. She could feel the room behind her waiting, not respectfully, but curiously. Her eyes drifted shut again. The part she hated most was not the laughter. It was not the doubt. It was how quickly strangers judged her without knowing anything. She remembered her mother saying, "The world is full of people who see you, but never really look." Now she understood. She lightly rested her palms again, ready to play not just notes, not just sound, but everything she still had inside her. That was how her story began, not with fame, and not with pride, but with empty hands, an empty stomach, and a piano that nobody believed she could play. She sat at the piano, fingers resting gently on the keys, and memories began returning to her one by one, like pieces of a life she once lived with ease. Before people laughed, before hunger pushed her to ask strangers for food, before she had to think about survival, there was music. There was a time when she woke each morning and ran to the piano like a child runs to sunlight. Her family lived in a small home where music always traveled. It entered the rooms like a soft wind. Her mother called it her gift, something precious, something rare. When she was younger, her mother saved money little by little, sometimes skipping things she needed just so her child could take classes. She would say, "One day, people will hear you and they will know." But life has a way of changing when no one expects it. The house that once felt safe began growing quiet. Her mother's energy faded. Days that once carried laughter became filled with doctor visits, pills, long rest, and worry that settled in the air like dust that wouldn't leave. She remembered walking into her mother's room one afternoon, holding her piano lesson book. "Are you too tired for me to play today?" she asked. Her mother smiled and shook her head. "I would never be too tired to hear you play." Those words stayed with her slowly. Lessons stopped not because she lost interest, but because costs grew heavier. Medicine was expensive. Travel was expensive. Food was expensive. So she began working, not a job that required skill, just simple things people paid for. Carrying boxes, cleaning, anything that brought a little money home. Her hands, once meant for keys, began turning rough from labor. Her body, once light and hopeful, began carrying weight she was too young to carry. But she never complained because her mother noticed everything. Sometimes she sat beside her while she rested. "Did you practice today?" her mother asked. She would smile and lie just a little. "Yes, asterisk," even though she did in single quotes t. One night, after finishing her task outside a small store, she walked past a music school. Through the window she saw students her age, maybe younger, sitting at shining pianos, clean benches, polished floors, teachers guiding gently. She pressed her hand to the wall outside, feeling something twist inside her. She remembered what it felt like to belong to a place like that. But belonging had faded. The piano at home was old, the keys slightly loose, some notes sounded thin, but she loved it anyway. When she played, she forgot the worries sitting inside her chest. She forgot the unpaid bills. She forgot her mother's weak voice calling from another room. Music softened everything. One afternoon, after returning from work, she found her mother sitting quietly, looking through the window. "You need to play again," her mother whispered, "even if it's just for me." That was the last time she played for her, really played. After that, days became harder. Sometimes she had only enough for tea, sometimes nothing at all. Yet she still tried to smile. Her mother needed to see strength. When evenings came, she sat on the floor near her feet and listened to stories from years before she was born, stories about how her mother once dreamed of becoming a teacher, how dreams changed, how responsibilities came, and how none of it stole her joy. She would ask, "Do you regret anything?" Her mother always answered the same way, "Not if I see you succeed." Those words felt heavier than any weight she had ever carried. She promised silently that she would succeed, not for praise, not for attention, but so her mother could rest. But promises need strength, and strength needs food, and food needs money. Soon, the piano turned quiet. Weeks passed without even touching the keys. When she finally tried again, she felt slower, unsure. Notes she once remembered easily got lost in her fingers. Music was slipping, fading, disappearing like a dream waking up too soon. She knew if she didn't fight for it, everything she once dreamed of would vanish. But she had choices to make. Some were painful. She decided to search for work outside the town, not far, but far enough to feel alone. She walked roads she never walked before. She spoke to strangers who barely looked at her. She tried to borrow, to trade, to offer anything she had, but she had very little. Days turned into weeks. She worked whenever work came. When money came, she used it on medicine and food for her mother. Medicine mattered more than anything. Sometimes she ate leftovers not because she wanted to, but because that was all that existed. Yet her mother never knew this part. She never told her. She made everything sound easy. Work was fine. Today, someone paid me more than expected. We're doing okay. None of that was fully true. But her mother still smiled, and that was enough. Every time she walked back home after a long day, she imagined an audience listening somewhere far away, somewhere safe, somewhere warm. She pictured herself dressed neatly, sitting on a stage under bright lights. She imagined applause, not for her, but for the years she fought quietly. She imagined lifting her mother from the crowd, guiding her backstage, holding her proudly. Those dreams carried her steps. Then the illness grew worse. She began skipping meals completely to save more. She grew thinner, weaker, colder. Her clothes felt loose. Her hands shook at times. Yet when she entered her mother's room, she always smiled. One night, as she sat beside her, her mother placed a soft hand over hers. "Don't forget what you're meant to do," she whispered. Her voice was faint. Her eyes were tired, but she still knew her child's dream. That night she cried silently only after her mother slept. She pressed her face into her hands, feeling the weight of everything pressing back. And then came the morning when nothing was left, no savings, no food, no path. Her mother needed treatment again, and she had nothing to give. She walked outside, determined to find something, anything. And that was the day she reached the restaurant, tired from walking too far, stomach empty, hope lowered. When she asked to play for food, she did not ask proudly. She asked because survival needed courage more than talent. People laughed because they only saw her present, not her past. They saw worn clothes, not a girl who once practiced with passion. They heard her hungry voice, not the sound her hands once created. They saw someone begging, not someone trading a gift. They saw a stranger, not a child raised on dreams. As she sat ready to play, the memories reminded her why she could not fail, not this time, not today. If she played well, someone might offer food. If she played better, someone might ask more of her. And if anyone believed her even for a moment, that belief might reach her mother. The piano in front of her was not just an instrument. It was a bridge between who she used to be and who she must become. Her hands hovered, her heart steadied, her hunger still hurt. But music was stronger than hunger. She closed her eyes once more and whispered inside her thoughts, "This isn't just for me." And she began to play, not because people expected something impressive, not because she needed applause, but because if music left her, everything her mother sacrificed would be wasted. So she pressed the first note, not soft this time, but with strength. Then another, then a third. Her past returned through every sound, and her promise came alive again. When she finally began to play, the sound did not come out loud. It was gentle at first, almost shy, like she was greeting an old friend after years of silence. The first notes floated into the air, soft enough that many people did not realize anything had started. A few kept eating, a few kept talking, and someone even laughed quietly as if nothing meaningful could come from her hands. But then her fingers changed. The light touch grew stronger. She pressed the keys with more memory than confidence. But the music remembered her even when she thought she had forgotten it herself. It was a slow tune, not something meant to impress, but something meant to speak. Her back straightened, her shoulders loosened, and her hands moved with the calmness that comes when a person returns to a place where they belong. The restaurant began to shift. Someone who had been halfway through a bite froze, fork still raised. Another lowered their cup slowly. People who had laughed now turned quietly. A group at the far table leaned forward, uncertain if they were truly hearing what they thought they were hearing. She played without looking up. Her eyes stayed closed, her brow relaxed, and her breathing slowed. She was no longer sitting on a dusty bench inside a restaurant. She was back at the small house with her mother, back at the old piano, back on evenings when life had made sense. Her hands moved faster, Her fingers ran gently across the keys, crossing from left to right, then back, shifting notes the way a wind moves across calm water. It was the kind of playing that didn't rush but still carried strength. Someone whispered, "Where did she learn that?" Someone else replied, "She can't be just some stranger." The manager stood behind the counter and watched longer than he expected to. His arms were crossed, not out of judgment anymore, but out of confusion. He thought she would play simple notes. He thought she might stumble. He thought she was simply hungry and pretending to know how to play. He never expected this. She transitioned into another piece without slowing. The melody reached higher, brighter, filling the room like light entering a dim corner. A couple who had earlier exchanged amused looks now stared in silence. One person placed their phone down without pressing record because something about the moment felt too real to capture. Her hands were shaking slightly, not from fear now, but from emotion that had been silent too long. She reached the part of the melody she almost forgot weeks earlier. When she tried playing at home, she had paused during this part because she was unsure. But now, the memory returned like a flame reopening. She played the right notes, every single one. Someone clapped once, not loudly, just a natural reaction. But they stopped because the music felt too sacred to interrupt. Others listened without moving. Her breathing became uneven, but her fingers did not stop. She remembered the soft voice that once said, "Play even if you're tired. Play even when the world doesn't know who you are. Play because music belongs to your hands." She played faster now. Her body leaned closer to the piano, her wrists bending with grace, her fingertips pressing down like she had practiced all day, even though she hadn't practiced for months. This was not performance. It was release. Release of hunger. Release of fear. Release of exhaustion. Every note told a part of her story she could not speak aloud. She reached the final part of the piece, scaled upward beautifully, landed softly, and then rested her hands on the keys for just one moment longer, like someone holding onto a memory before letting it go. She lifted her hands. There was no sound anywhere. No clattering plates. No chewing. No whispers. Just stillness. Then someone clapped. Then another. Then the entire restaurant. It was not forced applause. It was not polite. It was applause from people who were surprised not by her hunger, but by her gift. Her eyes opened, and she looked around like someone waking from a dream. The manager walked closer. His voice was softer now. "That was real music," he said. "Where did you learn that?" She didn't answer right away. Words were still stuck beneath feelings. "At home," she finally whispered. "Did you study somewhere?" "A long time ago." She lowered her eyes. Before things changed, her voice did not tremble this time. There was dignity in it. One of the customers got up, reached into their bag, and placed something beside her, a sandwich wrapped neatly. Another followed and placed a bowl of soup. Someone else left a warm drink. They did not give these things like gifts. They gave them like respect. She did not refuse. She did not pretend she wasn't hungry. She simply whispered, "Thank you." The manager nodded toward the counter. "Come sit. Eat properly," he said. She hesitated first, then stood up slowly and walked to an empty table. People moved aside, not because she asked, but because they felt she deserved space. One person said, "Play again later if you can." She smiled gently. "If you want." She began eating, not fast, not desperate, just grateful. While she ate, people whispered around the room, not mocking her this time, but speaking with real interest. She could be performing somewhere. How did she end up here? Someone should help her. A young person recorded a few seconds after she played and posted the video online. They didn't add anything mean or dramatic, just the caption. A girl walked in asking to play for food. Listen to this. Within minutes, messages began appearing under the post. "Where is this? She plays beautifully. Please post more of her playing." She didn't know any of that yet. She only knew food was in front of her, and her mother would not have wanted her to walk away from such a moment. After finishing, she returned to the piano. People settled into their seats again, not laughing, not doubting, just waiting. She played a second piece slower than the first, softer, a melody that reminded her of falling asleep beside her mother's voice. The restaurant grew quiet again, but this time the silence was gentle. At one point she opened her eyes and saw several people smiling softly, not with pity, but admiration. Her hands continued moving, alive again, certain again. She understood something then. Music never left her. It simply waited for her to return. She finished the piece. People clapped again. One person approached and spoke carefully. "You shouldn't be here just playing for food. Someone should take you to perform properly." She didn't know what to say. She didn't know if such things could ever happen, but the thought warmed her. The manager walked back and placed more food near her. Take this home, he said. Come back tomorrow if you want. Play anytime. Her eyes softened. Thank you, she whispered. She gathered what was given, walked toward the door, and paused for a moment. The same door where she once stood uncertain now felt different. People waved. Someone called, "Come back soon." She stepped outside into the cool evening air. The wind touched her cheeks softly, almost like a blessing. For the first time in months, she felt her shoulders lift. She didn't know if anything bigger would come from that day. She didn't know if someone important had listened. But she knew something had changed. She walked down the road carrying food, not shame. Every step matched a note she played, and the world, at least one small part of it, had finally heard her. The next morning, she woke earlier than usual. The sky outside her window was still quiet, and the faint light had barely begun to spread across the ground. She looked at the food she had brought home the night before. It felt like proof that something good had finally happened. She warmed a small portion, ate slowly, then placed the rest aside for later. Today would require strength. She checked on her mother quietly. She slept lightly, but peacefully. For the first time in a while, her mother had eaten enough the previous night. She covered her gently, whispered, "I'll be back soon," and left. The walk back to the restaurant felt different. Yesterday she walked with hunger pulling her down. Today she walked with something else pushing her forward, something close to hope. When she reached the restaurant, it was not as crowded as before. Only a few customers sat inside, drinking warm drinks and talking softly. She didn't plan to ask for anything. She just wanted to play again. The manager noticed her first. "You came early," he said. She nodded politely. "Only to play again, if it's all right." He motioned toward the piano. "Whenever you want." She sat, touched the keys, and began her music once more. The morning air still felt cold, but the sound warmed the space. People turned and listened. Some customers who were leaving paused at the door just to hear a few more notes before stepping outside. She played 3 pieces without stopping, each softer than the evening before. It was early, and she didn't want to disturb anyone. Instead, she filled the room with gentle sounds that drifted like morning breeze. The manager eventually stepped forward. "You don't need to play for food today. You can play simply because you like to." She smiled and thanks. As she finished, a woman sitting near the window approached. "I recorded you yesterday," the woman said. "Would you mind if I post another clip later? More people want to see you." The girl hesitated. "If it helps someone listen, it's fine." The woman nodded and returned to her seat. Over the next hour, the restaurant became busier. People walked in, ordered, and listened. Some whispered, some smiled. A child even clapped after one song. Then something happened that she couldn't have imagined. A man entered wearing a long coat and carrying a small leather notebook. He didn't sit at the tables. Instead, he stood near the corner where he could see her clearly. He listened without moving, eyes focused, expression thoughtful. When she finished her song, he stepped closer. "Can I speak to you for a moment?" She looked up, unsure whether something was wrong. "Yes, I was sent here," he said. "Someone posted a video of you online last night. I work with a local music group. We host events and small concerts. Would you be open to playing at one sometime?" Her heart shook, not from fear, but disbelief. "A concert?" she asked quietly. "A small one first," he replied. "But if the reaction stays strong, there can be more. You have something rare, emotion in your playing. People listen differently when emotion leads." She looked down at the piano keys. "I haven't performed anywhere before." "That doesn't matter," he answered. "Talent isn't created on stage. It is revealed there." The manager stepped closer, surprised. "You want her to perform?" "Yes," the man nodded. "Her music is real." She didn't know how to react. She wasn't used to anyone believing in her, not strangers, not audiences, certainly not music professionals. The man wrote down details on a slip of paper. "There's an event at the community hall in 2 days. If you're willing, you can play. You don't need anything special, just yourself." He placed the note on the piano and began to walk away. "Think about it," he said. She watched him leave. Unable to speak, the manager came to her side. "You should go. Opportunities don't knock twice. I don't have proper clothes for something like that," she answered. "Nobody is going to look at clothes when they hear music like yesterday." She wasn't sure. She was scared not of playing, but of failing. But she folded the paper and held it carefully. The next day, she practiced again. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough to remind her fingers of old promises. She played until the customers stopped counting songs. She played until she felt nothing but calm. At home, she told her mother about the opportunity. Her mother smiled, weak but proud. You must go. If someone sees you, someone else will see you after that, and another after that. Her mother paused, breathed slowly, then added, dreams don't disappear. They only wait. She held her mother's hand. Will you be fine while I'm away? I'll be more than fine, her mother whispered, knowing my child wasn't afraid. She prepared nothing special, only rehearsed certain pieces she remembered most deeply. She practiced on the old piano at home. Even though some keys were damaged, she played softly, trying not to disturb her mother. When the night of the event arrived, she walked to the hall slowly. People were entering, talking, waiting. Her heart beat painfully hard, but her feet kept moving. The hall wasn't large, but it was full. The piano on the stage was cleaner than the restaurant one. The lights above looked too bright. Someone guided her backstage. You will play after two performers. You don't need to introduce yourself. Just sit and start. She nodded and waited. Two singers went first. People clapped politely. Then her turn came. She walked out slowly. The lights made it difficult to see faces clearly. She sat down. Her hands were cold. So cold she rubbed them together. Then she closed her eyes. Not for confidence, for courage, and she began. She didn't start with the loud piece. She began with the one her mother loved most. A melody soft like breathing, slow like evening wind, something quiet enough that the crowd leaned in. Every note vibrated with memory. She played like someone telling a story without words, without explanation. Her second piece lifted gently upward, and the audience began reacting. People exchanged looks. Someone whispered, "Who is she?" Someone else recorded silently. She finished her third song with more strength than she planned. When the final note landed, the room stayed silent for a moment. Then applause echoed, not small applause, but something deep. She looked up and saw nothing clearly except movement and sound. After stepping down, people approached. Where have you trained? Why haven't we seen you before? Do you perform often? She answered softly, No, this is my first time. The organizer came back. You belong on stages. If you are available, we can schedule more events. People will want to hear you again. She nodded. Not because she believed it fully, but because something inside her finally wanted to believe. When she returned home that night, her mother was awake, waiting. How was it? She looked down, smiled gently. People listened, really listened, and they clapped. Her mother touched her hand. Then this is only the beginning. She held on to those words, because now, doors were opening, not with hunger, not with begging, but with sound. The restaurant, the hall, the applause. It carried one message. Her gift was no longer hidden. People had heard, more would hear. And soon, life would not be about asking for food. Life would be about offering something beautiful. Without knowing how, she had stepped into a different path. And this time, she was not walking alone. She had her music, she had listeners, and her mother believed again. Everything had changed, and yet everything she needed was still the same. Her hands, her heart, and a piano waiting. She sat at the piano with a calmer heart now. The same piano that once waited for someone to believe in her was no longer a test. It was no longer tied to hunger or worry. Now it was tied to opportunity, to a future that had opened like a door she never expected. People filled the hall, not because they wanted entertainment, but because they had heard her story. They wanted to see the girl who once asked to play only for food. They wanted to witness her skill with their own eyes. She looked around before she began. So many faces watched her, yet none made her nervous. The lights around her were warm, soft, and welcoming. This time, she was not begging at a doorway. This time, she was invited, supported, appreciated. Her mother sat in the front row with a small blanket round her shoulders. She was stronger now, still recovering, but no longer helpless. She smiled, not with worry but with pride. Her eyes shined as she waited for her daughter to begin. When she placed her hands on the keys, everything returned. The hours she practiced alone, the days she risked embarrassment for food, the moments she questioned if her talent even mattered. Now it did. Now it changed everything. She began playing. It was a piece she never wrote down, one she shaped quietly during long nights when time moved slowly. It was soft and deep at first. The audience leaned into the sound, almost breathing with it. Then the tone rose, fuller, brighter. Her fingers moved smoothly across the keys. People lifted their phones again, not in surprise now, but in admiration. She was no longer evidence of luck. She was talent shaped by struggle, recognized at last. When the piece ended, There was not a single moment of silence. The audience stood before she even turned from the piano. Their applause was loud, warm, and filled the room. She stood slowly and bowed. After the performance, people came to her. Some wanted to tell her how her playing reminded them of their own childhood, or of dreams they once had. Others asked if she would come perform at events, schools, and even faraway cities. She listened. She smiled politely. She agreed to some invitations, postponed others. For the first time, she had choices. One woman approached and said she had been at that restaurant the day everything changed. She admitted she was one of those who left. She said she had learned something that day, that sometimes we look at someone and think they are weak or unskilled, but we know nothing about what they carry or what they can do. The girl simply thanked her. There was nothing else needed. No anger, no pride, just peace. Later that evening, she returned home. The small apartment still looked the same, but it no longer felt heavy. It held possibility instead of worry. Her mother sat at the table, sipping warm tea. She asked how things went, even though she already knew. The girl sat beside her and simply said it was good. A few days later, the recording from that night was shared online. It reached people who never saw her at the restaurant. It reached those who never knew she once played only for food. People began sending messages saying her story gave them courage. Some said they wanted to try again at something they abandoned years ago. Some said they remembered dreams they had buried. Some said her music made their bad days easier. She never expected any of that. Weeks passed, and her schedule filled. She performed at local programs, schools, and community centers. She never changed her tone. She stayed quiet, focused, humble. She never boasted. She never exaggerated her journey. She simply played. One afternoon, she returned to the same restaurant, not because she needed anything, but because she wanted to thank the owner. She walked inside. Everything looked the same: the chairs, the lights, the sound of plates and voices. When the owner recognized her, his entire face softened. He said he never forgot the day she changed his understanding of people. He asked her if she would play again, not for food this time, but for everyone to enjoy. She smiled and sat down. When she began playing, families stopped eating to listen. Younger kids sat closer. Workers leaned near the doorway so they wouldn't miss the sound. She played with ease, not rushed, not nervous. Her music filled the space. When she finished, the applause was soft but sincere. She didn't need loud clapping anymore. Appreciation was enough. As she walked home, she thought about how everything changed, not because someone helped her first, but because she stepped forward bravely on the worst day of her life and asked to play. From that one moment, doors opened. Months later, she enrolled again in music classes, not because she was starting over, but because she wanted to grow. She studied new pieces, met other musicians, and learned styles she had never touched before. She practiced every day, not out of fear, but out of joy. Her mother fully recovered slowly but steadily. She enjoyed sitting near her daughter during practice. Sometimes she closed her eyes, letting the music calm her. Sometimes she talked about the days when her daughter played on an old keyboard at home. Life was not perfect, but it was safe now. It was hopeful. Her name began appearing on posters for music events. People asked her to record albums. She took her time. She wanted everything to feel honest. One evening, she sat alone with the piano lights off. She pressed a few soft notes and remembered everything again. The hunger, the embarrassment, the laughing faces. The moment everything changed, she didn't want to erase those memories, because they shaped her. They reminded her that sometimes the lowest point is the door to something higher. She whispered quietly, even though no one was listening, "Thank you." Then she played again, soft first, then stronger, then gentle again. The world outside moved as usual. Cars passed. People talked. Lights changed, but inside that small room, each note mattered. Each moment carried meaning. She was no longer the girl asking for food. She was someone whose music meant something, and that was enough.